this video, we dive into a case that haunted an entire community for over 3 decades. For 32 years, the truth was buried under silence, fear, and unanswered questions. A girl and her friends went to a party, but she didn't come back. The police looked for her but couldn't find her. Before we continue, I'd really love to know where you're watching from, whether it's a big city or a small town. Drop your location in the comments below. It's always interesting to see how far these stories reach. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into true crime, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you're the first to know when a new case is posted. Now, let's get back into it. Pamela Pittz was born in Forsyth Township, Michigan, on June 25, 1969. Her dad was in the service, and he and his wife had 3 more kids after she was born. The family first lived on an Air Force base nearby for a while. Eventually, they moved to Prescott, an Arizona town that is quiet. Pamela liked being around other people and had no trouble making new friends. Her CB radio, which was famous among teens at the time, was one of her favorite things. Everyone who used it had a nickname that they could use to talk to other people. Dark Angel was Pamela's name. When she was 19, she moved out of her parents' house and into a house with her best friend and another person. At the same time, she began meeting a man named Bobby. Pamela had big plans for the future. She planned to go to college and work as a beauty therapist afterward. But before she did that, she got a job at a nearby diner as an accountant. She got along with everyone on the team right away and loved it. Pamela, who was 19 years old at the time, chose to go see her folks on September 14, 1988. They talked about their plans for the next weekend that night. She was going to hang out with them on Saturday and bring some laundry to wash. After waiting all day on Saturday, she came home, but Pamela didn't show up. She didn't show up or call on Sunday either, but they didn't freak out yet. They chose to wait a little longer because they thought her plans might have changed. While Pamela was at home that day, her flatmate Shelley called her dad, Paul, to see if Pamela was there. She said it had been a while since they had seen each other. Pamela left and didn't come back. Paul didn't think much of it at first. He thought Pamela might have spent the night with a friend, but the next day he called the restaurant where she worked to make sure she was okay. That's when he found out she wasn't there for her shift. She hadn't even told anyone by calling. That was so not like them at all. Pamela was always on time for work and never missed it. As time went on, her dad became more concerned and ultimately chose to call the cops. Detectives joined the search right away and began by going to Pamela's house. They found all of her personal items, like her purse and driver's license, still in her room when they got inside. Also, her car was parked in front. They also talked to Shell, Pamela's flatmate. They asked her if she had seen Pamela since Friday night. She said that Pamela and some friends had gone to a party in the woods near town and never came back. There was one more strange thing, though. Shelley and Pamela saved money for rent in a joint bank account. Pamela took all the money out of that account without telling Shelley anything right before she left. People in the area didn't like the bush where Pamela had gone for the party. Teenagers and college students who wanted to drink without being watched by adults liked to hang out there. There were times when those parties got physical, which had bad results. A fight broke out between 2 young guys in that forest not long before Pamela went missing. One pulled out a knife, killed the other, and got 10 years in jail for it. The people who were at the party with Pamela were questioned by the police. They said she went into the woods for a short time and never came back. Even though it seemed odd, they thought she was just going home and didn't think much of it at the time. Police also asked her family, co-workers, and other people she knew, but no one knew where Pamela could have gone. Police kept trying to find her over the next few days, but all of their leads ran out. After 13 days of not seeing Pamela, everything changed on September 29th. A few people from the area were walking through the woods, not far from where those parties normally took place, when they saw something strange. A piece of what looked like a body stuck out of a pile of trash next to a dump. When they got closer, they saw that it was a badly burned body lying in the trash bags. They ran to the closest payphone right away and called the cops. When the police got there, they saw that the body was so badly burned that it couldn't be identified. One thing that had escaped the fire was a metal bracelet on each victim's wrist that said, "Dark Angel." There were no papers or personal items. The medical inspector got dental records from a nearby clinic to make sure it was the right person. That's how they finally proved what everyone had thought. The body was that of Pamela Pittz, a young woman who hadn't been seen in almost 2 weeks. The medical investigator couldn't figure out how Pamela died because her body was so badly burned. But they did find one troubling fact. It looked like she was already dead when her body was set on fire. The police also thought that more than one person might have been involved. The way the crime was done made it seem like more than one person was involved. The victim was killed first, and then her body was hidden for a while, possibly weeks before it was burned and dumped by the road. Since the case was now clearly a murder, the police turned their attention to finding out who did it. Bobby, who was dating Pamela, was their first suspect. In a talk with police, he said that the last time he saw Pamela was at the party in the woods the night she went missing. Bobby said he had to leave early for his night shift, so he said goodbye and left. He also said that Pamela was just going to go home after the party because she didn't have any other plans. Detectives checked his story and found that he had in fact been at work that night. So Bobby was no longer on the list of suspects, and they kept looking for solutions. Then, the police talked to Pamela's two roommates, who both said she didn't come home that night. Also, the cops chose to check both of their alibis, which is when things got interesting. Jeremy, the first roommate, had been to a football game, and then spent the rest of the night out with friends who believed what he said. How was Pamela's friend, Shelley? She said she got off work late that night, and then went to meet her boyfriend, Raymond. Their friend said they got back to his house after 3 a.m. after hanging out at his friend's house. Shelley said she couldn't sleep, so she hopped in her car and drove around the city until 7 a.m. Some people found that story strange. When detectives went to see Raymond to make sure of the time, he told them that they got home around 11:30 p.m. instead of 3 a.m. When they told him about the mistake, Raymond said it had been more than 2 weeks, and he couldn't remember the exact time. However, the police weren't ready to believe him. That's what they asked him to do, and he said yes. The test didn't find any signs that he was lying in his answers. For now. The police gave him the benefit of the doubt, because they thought he might have really forgotten. During those talks, Shelley gave the police another possible lead. She said that she had been having money problems right before Pamela vanished. It was hard for her to pay her rent, and she had even thought about moving back in with her folks. When police saw that Pamela had emptied their shared bank account right before she disappeared, they began to think that her death might have had something to do with money. Soon, though, they got a much scarier lead. A friend of Pamela's told the cops about a man who had been bragging about threatening to kill her. This guy said he was a Satanist and that he had used an ice pick to hurt Pamela and then done some kind of religious sacrifice. Police found the man, but he said he had nothing to do with the killings. Detectives couldn't find any proof that the self-proclaimed Satanist was involved with the crime, and they began to question that he really had anything to do with Pamela's death. She didn't have any cuts on her body that looked like they were made with an ice pick. With the routine story added, it didn't sound like a confession as much as it did like something he made up. Soon after, the police got another tip. Someone who saw what happened at the party told them about a girl named Melinda. This girl might have a reason to go after Pamela. He said that Melinda was known for getting into fights and having a short fuse that could go off at any time. He said that night the two got into a very heated fight, and Melinda hit Pamela. When police asked Melinda about what happened, she denied everything. She said she hadn't even been to the party that night. The cops were still not sure. They talked to the district attorney, who set up a formal meeting with a sworn voice. Melinda and a few other people who had been at the party were brought in. She said she wasn't there, again, and that she had been at a nearby hotel with a small-town band, but no one could back up her story. On the other hand, many people who saw her said they were sure they saw her at the party. As officers' doubts about Melinda grew, they finally had enough to charge her. After 4 months, she was jailed for lying. She was locked up for a short time, though. Melinda was freed 10 months after she was arrested because police didn't have enough proof to charge her with killing Pamela. It's important to note that Melinda left the state as soon as she was freed and never came back to her hometown. After that, the case came to an end, and because there were no other strong leads, it went cold in the end. But after a few years, something happened that changed everything. No one saw it coming. On May 25, 1991, some students were visiting an old empty mine near Prescott when they found something horrifying at the bottom, a man's body. The way he was decomposing made it look like he had been dead for a few weeks. He was wrapped in the covering of a waterbed. The man was found to be Raymond Clark's, Shell's boyfriend. This is the same Shell who had lived with Pamela. A bullet wound to the head killed the person. The detectives who were working on Pamela's case acted right away. Could there be a link, or was it just a coincidence? In the weeks before Raymond went missing, his family had been trying to call him, but he wasn't answering the phone. This led them to look into his last days. Shelley told them that he had to leave town for work and hadn't come back yet. That excuse worked until Raymond missed the wedding of a close family member. That's when his family realized something was very wrong. Once they knew who he was, police began a full investigation into Raymond's death, starting with Shelley, who was closest to him. She said she didn't know where Raymond was and was just as worried as everyone else when they asked her. But while they were talking to her at home, the police saw something strange. What looked like dried bloodstains going to the garage. They followed the trail and saw Shell's car when they got into the garage. As soon as they got closer, the smell of death coming from the car hit them like a heavy wind. When looked at more closely, the whole trunk was covered with blood, and later tests in the lab proved it belonged to Raymond. A handgun was also found under the front seat by the police. Testing by forensics showed that it was the exact gun that was used to kill him. Shelley was caught right away, but she kept denying having anything to do with Raymond's death. But more and more proof kept coming in. Investigators looked at tire tracks near the abandoned mine where the body was found. They were a perfect match for the tires on the pickup truck that Shell had borrowed from a friend just a few days before. Besides that, a torch was found at the bottom of the mine, and Shell's prints were all over it. Even though there was more and more proof, Shelley refused to confess. She didn't give up for 2 years while the lawyers built their case and got ready for trial. Shelley finally broke down and agreed to tell police what really happened to Raymond right before the case went to court. Shelley told the police that she and Raymond had been dating for a long time. He had been learning how to be a professional pilot at that time. Raymond finally got his license and then decided he wanted to move to California to look for work, and it wasn't really his plan to bring Shell with him. He told her he was leaving and said he was taking their dogs with him. Shelley says that they had their last chat while they were away from town. While lying on the roof of their car, they watched planes fly by. Rye decided to leave Shelley behind in Arizona, and she was very upset. She said she took out a gun and shot him in the head. But detectives weren't satisfied, even after she admitted what she did. It looked like Raymond had been killed at their house, not in the middle of nowhere. Based on the evidence, he was shot inside the house and then kept in Shell's car trunk for almost 2 weeks. Afterwards, she borrowed a friend's pickup truck, put his body in it, and left it in the empty mine. Detectives didn't like one more thing about the case. They didn't think Shelley could have done everything by herself. They thought someone else had helped her, but she wouldn't say who. Of course, Shelley was still given a 20-year prison term without the chance of parole. The police who were looking into Pamela's murder began to seriously suspect that Shelley had something to do with it as well. She kept saying she wasn't guilty, and there was still no strong proof linking her to the crime. That was the end of Pamela's case for good. Raymond's dad began helping Pamela's family after Shelley was arrested. He even said that anyone with information that could help solve her death would get $10,000. Police also told the public that anyone who came forward and told the truth would not be punished at all if they helped cover up the crime. No one did, though. Over the next few years, police kept looking into Pamela's case in the hopes of finding new hints. They tried following every tip, but none of them led anywhere. That went on for 20 years until Shelley got out of prison in 2011. She moved to a small Nevada town, got a job as an accountant, and got married in the end. She lived a quiet, low-key life after that. Her neighbors said she was happy, kind, and friendly. In the background. Though the police still thought she got away with murder, and weren't done looking for proof. That was after Pamela's case had been given to a different officer. He made the choice to start over and look at all the proof from the beginning. Surprisingly, he found a few things that had been missed that raised major red flags about Shell. Several people who were asked at the time said that Shelley had been driving around town looking for Pamela the night she disappeared. Friends said that Shelley told them straight out that she was going to kill Pamela when they asked her what was going on. Some people said Shelley had talked about how to kill someone and get away with it by saying that the key was to make the person disappear for a few weeks and then burn or dump the body in a mine shaft. This seemed very fishy, but it wasn't strong enough to hold up in court. So the police called the prison where Shelley had spent her time and asked to hear all of the recorded phone calls she had made while she was there. Most prisons and jails in the US record calls made by prisoners. And it was one of those recordings that finally taught the police what they needed to know. Her father called her soon after she was questioned about Pamela's case and asked if she was afraid of being jailed when she got out. That night, Pamela went missing was made clear by his words. After a short pause, Shelley said there was one big thing that could get her sent back to jail, but she didn't say what it was. Even though it wasn't a sure thing, it was enough for police to start looking into it. The recording was shown to the lawyer who looked over it all and gave the go-ahead. Shelley was caught again on June 4, 2017. She is now 50 years old. This time, though, it was for killing Pamela Pittz. The authorities had a hard time because there was no clear physical evidence linking Shelley to the crime. Right away, her lawyers asked that no one talk about Raymond's murder because they said it had nothing to do with Pamela's death. On the other hand, prosecutors thought it was very important and pointed out the troubling parallels between the two cases. Both of the people who died lived with Shelley. The two went missing under strange circumstances and were both found dead. The judge finally agreed with the defense and said that the jury could not be told that Shelley had been found guilty of killing her boyfriend before. It became clear very quickly that the prosecution's case was much weaker without that important piece of background information. Other problems came up out of the blue as well. A lot of the important witnesses had either died or couldn't remember what they had seen or heard after all those years. To make things even worse, Shell's lawyer said that the medical expert had never been able to say for sure what killed Pamela. In their defense, they said it was possible that she had died of natural causes or in an accident. It took 4 years just to get ready for hearing. In the end, the prosecution made a choice that caused a lot of debate. They made Shelley a deal to plead guilty. If she agreed to plead guilty to killing Pamela, the time she had already spent for killing Raymond would count towards her sentence, and she would be free right away. She would be able to walk out of the courtroom without any problems. Even though Pamela's parents didn't like the plan, they still agreed to it. Their only desire after decades of waiting was to know the truth. There was a good chance that the jury would not find Shelley guilty without strong proof. That would mean the case might never be solved. In March 2021, Shelley finally told the police what happened that night after making the deal. Shelley and Pamela lived together and were best friends. They both had jobs, but even with both of their incomes, they were just barely getting by. To help split the rent, they asked a third person to move in with them. That didn't help either. Pam told Shell after a few months that she was going to move out and go back to live with her family because she could no longer afford it. Shelley was very upset by that news. She didn't get along with her parents, and she didn't know what she would do if they left her. She couldn't pay the rent without Pamela either. Shelley found out that Pamela had emptied their shared bank account the night of the murder. She lost the money. She was so mad that she got in her car and drove around looking for Pamela. She kept telling herself that she might kill her if she found her. She found Pamela in the end at a party in the woods. When they took a step away from the crowd to talk, Shelley lost it. She hit Pamela in the face, and when she fell, Shell hit her again and again until she stopped breathing. There were people at the party just a few dozen feet away, so Shell had to move quickly. She tried to act like they were just messing around by laughing out loud and pretending to talk every time she heard footsteps nearby. Shelley said she couldn't handle how betrayed she felt by the person she thought of as her best friend. She thought that was why Pamela left and took all the money with her. I was so angry, hurt, and alone that I felt like everything just blew up in one moment of wild rage. She also did something very bad. She said that the same kind of emotional slip-up caused Raymond to kill her when he told her he was going to California with their dogs. That was the end of her statement. As part of the plea deal, she didn't have to say anything else besides that she killed the person, but police are still sure she wasn't the only one who did it. They thought that someone helped her get the body out of the woods and then set it on fire. Shelley was let out of jail right after she confessed. She went back to Nevada and went back to working as a bookkeeper and living with her husband. Right then and there, the case against Pamela Pittz was over. However, police were still sure that Shelley hadn't done it by herself. They thought that someone had helped her get rid of the body. Melinda, the woman who had a fight with Pamela that night. Still, it was hard to show without a confession. Also, it wasn't clear if Pamela had really cleared their joint account, or if she had just taken out her own share because she wasn't going to stay. Detectives thought Shelley might not be telling the truth about Pamela, because she had lied so much about Raymond's murder in her statement. While Pamela's parents agreed to the plea deal, it was still a bad experience. They said they would have liked to see Shelley spend the rest of her life in jail, but they knew that wasn't possible. Later, her father told reporters, "This woman has been found guilty of murder twice. I would sleep with one eye open if I were her husband." Thank you for watching this story. True crime cases like this leave us with so many questions, but also important lessons. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more.